Tonight on the Invention Laboratory, we discuss my origin story, what led me to help clients with their inventions for over a decade, and how I plan to help you with your next project. Let's go.
People are looking for fast scores. You know how many people here spent $800 on a course because it was gonna happen fast?
Hey, it's Pat here, and in this video I want to share with you 10 lessons I've learned since inventing a physical product.
We're going to talk about perceived ownership. Steve, this is something that we talk about a lot. People that are kind of new to the game, they don't know what the heck we're talking about.
This means starting small without the risk of a big financial investment, but at the same time being ready to scale up big if the opportunity presents itself.
One of the things that really hurt Apple was after I left, John Sculley got a very serious disease. And that disease, I've seen other people get it too. It's the disease of thinking that a really great idea is 90% of the work.
Obsession is the thing that makes heroes.
You know, I've been a creative professional for 15 years now, but I'm no professional packaging designer.
Most people only pay attention to the final product of a successful entrepreneur. They say things like, I can never be like them.
And the problem with that is that there's just a tremendous amount of craftsmanship in between a great idea and a great product.
The Invention Laboratory is a show that takes a deep dive into product development, inventions, and entrepreneurship. After spending over a decade in the industry, it's time to pass on that knowledge to anyone who's ever dreamed of bringing a product to life. Good evening and welcome to the Invention Laboratory. In 2008, I entered the product development industry at what I thought was going to be the worst possible moment. The U.S. economy was taking a dive and Wall Street was drowning in the blood of the housing bubble aftermath. There wasn't a spare penny to be spent on new projects, and the population watched in horror as their 401ks and pension plans and home equity evaporated in front of their eyes. I managed to land a job at an R&D firm that helped inventors and businesses prepare their latest and greatest inventions for market. Now, I had always dreamed of inventing my own product. I even spent 15 weeks on a group project in my undergraduate studies researching my invention. We created, product launch, 5-year rundown of the financials, licensing opportunities, fundraising events, even investment strategies for the profits from the project. Now, after about 2 weeks of orientation at my new job, paperwork on confidentiality, FTC regulations, sales training, I was met with my biggest surprise to date. The HR manager walked me into my office, which was equipped with furniture, computer station, whiteboards for brainstorming with clients, and a tour of the building and its amenities. The true shock didn't come until I sat down and I moved my mouse. The company's custom CRM was loaded with tens of thousands of would-be inventors that had reached out to them for help over the last 6 months. The company was receiving roughly 55,000 ideas a month. I expected this to be the most challenging part of my new career, especially with the market the way it was. The very first lesson that I ended up learning in R&D is that it's recession-proof. Individuals and companies need new and exciting products now more than ever to convince struggling populations to part with their hard-earned money. Those same old widgets weren't going to cut it anymore. I also learned that the company's highest influx of invention submissions tend to come following tragedies. School shootings, bombings, 9/11, natural disasters. People start thinking about how they could have saved lives. It was at that moment that I knew my career path was going to require more time, energy, and effort than I had ever given in my life. These were no longer logical decisions that inventors and companies would have to make. They were emotional ones. During the first 4 years, I had worked on hundreds of products, and I watched families and companies succeed and fail with the same intensity. I had been promoted and was given a responsibility of training 22 product managers to assist inventors with their projects. Now, I provided them with tools to assist their clients with more than just idea clarity. I taught them to support the client when others doubted them. The hardest part of bringing an idea to life is finding a support system. Without it, it won't matter how much money you have, who you know, or how good the product is. Celebrating the victories and defeats is something you should never do alone. Most of all, I taught them if their client had no one to support them, it was their duty to become that support system for that client. Now, that task is harder than you can ever imagine. It was even difficult for me. I had acquired so much knowledge of traditional product development that I actually became infatuated with everything we weren't teaching the clients. R&D is a service-based industry that it's gathered around professionals that charge a premium to do most of the work for you. They do educate along the way, but they only provide the information that you need to know or that they feel you need to know. In fairness, if we tried to provide decades of knowledge in a limited amount of time, it would confuse the clients, and it actually discouraged a lot of them from pursuing their ideas altogether. I actually found myself burning out from being that constant balance of a support system and a manager and a motivator to my clients. I decided to enter an MBA program at a local university, and I laid out a plan to educate myself on the industry as a whole instead of just the service I was providing to the public. I wanted to see it all over the next few years. As my first semester started, I scheduled all of my classes at night, and that gave me the ability to take a position as an administrative assistant with Pittsburgh Glassworks. It's an auto division of PPG here in Pittsburgh. They service Daimler Chrysler, Mercedes, and hundreds of other manufacturers. My goal here was to be eyes and ears. Because I was working on my business, I was able to take the pay cut. I wanted to see how salesmen and product managers and supply chain analysts and HR handled cold calling and solicitation. I also wanted to see how the company instructed me to handle them as a gatekeeper. I completed 1 year with PGW and I enjoyed every single minute of it. The information I learned there was invaluable. I moved on and took a position in my second year as a product manager with Matthews International in their bronze foundry division. I got to spend time in their foundry observing the pours into molds. I sat through OSHA regulation meetings, safety seminars, and even helped them launch a project called Lasting Memory Memorial Service, which they took images that were used to create bronze plaques to commemorate military and civilian lives. I spent time with funeral homes developing the submission process, going over quality control to make sure the images were of a good quality so the molds came out correctly, and helped out with the design parameters. During that time, I was honored enough to be the manager selected to work on the Granite Mountain Hot Shots Memorial. 19 firefighters had lost their lives to wildfire in Arizona. They later made a movie about it, titled Only the Brave, in which the plaques were featured. Shortly after I completed my MBA program, I returned to my original company. Another set of skills that I needed to learn in this process were audio and video production. While continuing to work with my inventors during the day, I was moonlighting in AV. I spent my weekends working on commercials, conventions, sports production, trade shows, and live TV. During 2016, I worked on the World Series of Baseball for Fox, the Cubs and Indians series. I would schedule my clients' meetings during the day over the phone and handle them from the hotel before my call time. I did audio engineering for the Stanley Cup for NHL International here in Pittsburgh as well. During that time, I set up and attended 14 trade shows where I was able to meet reps from Ford, Coca-Cola, Chevy, GM, General Electric, Sony, Smith & Wesson, Kenmore, Apple, Marcellus Shale, just to name a few, and those relationships are still valuable to me today. That being said, there was still another set of skills that I needed, and unfortunately I would have to leave my long-standing post at my company to acquire them. I needed information on patenting. My current company did very little by the way of patenting because they believed, as I do, that patenting is important, but at the right time. And if you can get out of footing the bill for it, by all means, please go ahead and do that. I left my position and I started searching for an opportunity to work for a company or a patent attorney that had the knowledge that I required. And in the meantime, I started developing products on my own. I created distribution channels through eBay and Amazon, Amazon FBA, AliExpress, social media, and affiliate marketing. Private label product development was fascinating to me. I then started to attend conferences such as eBay Open, CES, and SEMA. At last year's eBay Open, I finally got the call. A law firm and an invention marketing firm were looking to bring on a new product manager, and this business model was patent heavy and did very little by the way of physical prototypes. It was perfect. I dropped everything to hop on board. Orientation at this firm left a lot to be desired. I had a lot of questions, and the VP had zero answers. Within 2 days, I had a phone in front of me to reach out to potential clients, and if it wasn't for my previous experience, I would have drowned in the questions from clients. During the first week, I discovered that I had signed more clients in 7 days than the VP signed over the last 3 months. The CEO then started asking my opinion on process and hiring options for candidates, even licensing tactics to secure agreements with manufacturers. After a month and a half, I was asked to take on additional responsibilities that I know belong to that VP. I started to feel as though I was stepping on toes and that VP had a family. I didn't want to be the reason or the solution that resulted in the loss of a job. I expressed my concerns with the CEO and I turned in a resignation. A few hours later, I was informed that the gentleman was let go and the position was open if I was interested. Now, I've never been one to turn down a pay raise, but I definitely had my reservations. This promotion, however, did come with one very important perk. I now had direct access to a patent attorney, a patent agent, and an engineer. Finally, I was going to get answers to my 47 questions. I kept a journal over the last few years and I left it by my bedside, adding notes from my cell phone daily. Every spare moment that wasn't spent assisting clients was spent on emails, meetings, and coffee with my new friends. At one point, I actually thought to myself, you're going to retire here. The firm and I shared one common trait. We had no problem declining to work with inventors. If it was a poorly thought out idea, I was permitted to reject a project. Furthermore, if a patent attorney completed their research and they felt the idea would not be granted a patent by the USPTO, he would actually give a negative patent assessment and save the client from wasting thousands of dollars in fees. I loved that. The company that I started with on this journey would have spent hours with clients convincing them to continue even if the idea wasn't fully baked. They had designers to assist with development and research results that will help them determine how to build the product. The downside of this method is that the final product was occasionally nothing like their original concept. Although it certainly had a better chance of success, the struggle becomes a constant question of who really is the inventor here. And we'll definitely discuss that in the future. The point is, I finally filled in all the blanks that I had on product development and its process by immersing myself in patenting, industry lingo, and understanding why and when people should or shouldn't patent. All of my out-of-the-office time was spent on my business. I dove headfirst into Amazon FBA, eBay, wholesale, liquidation, private label product development, and affiliate marketing. What started as a hobby began to pay my mortgage. The longer I stood in the shoes of the creator, the inventor, or the entrepreneur, the more I developed a lack of appreciation for service-based invention organizations and patent firms. The biggest problem I had here was with the repeat business. This is normally a huge plus, and it's a reflection of the service that they had received. Some would even refer friends and family. My big issue was that the clients weren't learning anything. Some of them had never been told no outside of the rejection from the manufacturer at the project's conclusion. Unfortunately, at that point, it's too late. You've already spent thousands of dollars, and realistically, most of them are about to do it again. Now, one of my favorite lines is from Jurassic Park. Jeff Goldblum's character, Dr. Malcolm, is talking to John Hammond, and John Hammond is saying that he's not getting his due credit for what they've done, and the response there is, yeah, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could that they didn't stop to think if they should. Should you pursue your ideas? Absolutely. But you need to do your due diligence before you start writing checks to professionals. I'm not saying to not use professional services or patent attorneys or consultants. What I am saying, no, what I'm pleading with you is to please educate yourself before, during, and after you pursue your first idea. My goal is to educate my listeners so that they no longer need me. This podcast is dedicated to every inventor, entrepreneur, and business owner that has ever dreamed of bringing a product to life. Let's get to work.